Okay, here's a real life situation. You own an electric car company, and as your business gained popularity and started to expand its product lines, you're met with legal challenges. Apparently, you don't own the right to the name of your company. WTF? Telsa Industries was one step ahead of you, Elon Musk. Little known fact and big ass brand cramp. Today on Brand Cramp, we're talking to IP attorney Matt Patterson, founder and president of Optimal IP Strategies, about the importance of recognizing the value of and protecting your intellectual property. Well, hello, Matt, and welcome.
Thank you, Aileen. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. As you know, intellectual property covers a wide range of intangible assets and creations that are the result of human intellect and creativity. And that's a big loaded sentence. Today, we're going to focus on trademarks, which, as you and I talked, is just really brushing the surface of this topic. But first off, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so thanks again, Aileen. So I am a former engineer. I like to call myself a recovering engineer. I worked for the Boeing company, and I was Boeing Inventor of the Year. And I was introduced to an IP attorney, and I said, boy, that's what I want to do. So I went to law school. A little bit later in life, I worked at a major IP boutique firm, doing patents and trademarks for them. And then I went in-house for a bit of time doing intellectual property work, IP work for them. And about 10 years ago, I formed Optimal IP Strategies, doing mostly patents and trademarks for a variety of clients.
That's awesome. And what type of clients?
Small companies, like, I do work for high-tech companies, medical device companies, that kind of stuff. I do work for individuals from time to time, but my mainstay are small companies.
Okay, cool. One of the services that I offer at Alien Designs is branding. And as we both know, branding covers a wide variety of work, but also includes sort of the name and visual identity of the company. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you and I both have experience working with business owners who are thinking about either starting a new business, expanding an existing business. Everybody always starts with their name, and they get a catchy name and they stick with it and they just absolutely love it. And as I mentioned, I design logos and things, and I find that most entrepreneurs and business owners, they don't know much about trademarks or put much weight on it. A lot of the folks that I work with, I really have to convince to think about it. Most decide not to trademark their name.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What are the potential consequences of failing to research your company's name and trademark it? And you and I have a personal example of that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of throwing the money that you pay Alien Designs away, potentially, if you don't, do, like I always say, do your homework, right? So so let's just take a scenario where somebody else, you come up with a name and somebody else has it registered, right? And so the consequences can range from, getting a cease and desist letter or a phone call telling you not to knock it off, to getting sued, right? Some people just sue right out of the box, right? And if they have a registered trademark, they can take all of your profits that you earned using that name. They can sue for actual damages. So say, they lost sales because of you. They could force you to pay a reasonable royalty for that, using that mark. And they can also get attorney's fees and costs if it's warranted in extreme cases. And then again, you got to rebrand. So all the collateral, all the website work, everything you've done, is all for naught.
Yeah. And just, the little bit of research that I did on the Tesla story, and I was surprised to find that, well, not actually, based on
Right.
Elon Musk,
Right.
he likes to do what he likes to do, but, he was sued and he had to settle out of court to
Right.
move ahead with Tesla. So, I didn't dive deep enough to see what the settlement was, but I mean, that's pretty significant. And you think someone at his level doesn't place value on it,
Right.
there are many, many businesses out there who don't.
Right.
Who don't do it. And, we have an example of a friend who had a new business and he put the new business name out on Facebook and someone took it.
Right. 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 So, I mean, he was lucky because he was at the beginning of his business, right?
Yeah.
But still a very catchy name. And, somebody took it and squatted on the URL.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? So it's
exactly.
not just trademarks, right? I mean, you need to protect yourself you have to protect your name, before you make social media splashes, if you
Right.
will.
And early on in my career, I was exploring the whole world of licensing because I was an illustrator before I became a marketer. And one of the best tips that I got, although doesn't protect you, but one of the best tips that I got from a coach that I was working with was she said, um, Google the name of your business or go see if a URL is reserved.
Right.
And what I would do is I would Google stuff to see if any of my names came up, which sometimes they did. And then I'd go to, a domain service and I'd see if the URLs were available. And that was a way that I could see if my ideas were unique or not.
Right.
And I will tell my clients that too. Like if you have the name of a business before you go anywhere or even work with me to do anything, do a do a little research and do some Googling and stuff, and that'll help you out.
Right. That's what I
Um,
say. Do your homework.
yeah, do your homework. And the thing is, I've worked with enough clients that when I'm doing their logo and I ask them if they've done the research, they say, no, just go ahead anyway. And then I can go down the path of doing
Right.
branding work for them when they find that, someone in the next town has the
Right.
same brand. And then, it's the conversation, well, okay, so now I have to start all over again.
Right. Right. Hit the reset
Yeah.
button. Right.
So, a question about that, can all names carry a trademark? All business names?
So yeah, I mean, within the realm of trademarks, right? There's names, which are word marks. There's logos, right, which can be trademarked, and there's slogans, right? Um, uh, you can also, in extreme cases, do colors and do
Colors?
sounds. Yeah, right. Yeah, like Porsche Red is uh, is trademarked, but
Oh,
and so is Tiffany Blue. But
that would make sense. Yeah.
yeah. So if we're just talking about word marks, right? Certain names can't be trademarked, right? So you can't have a descriptive word. People need to use that descriptive word in the business, right? So you can't say like your brand couldn't be the best ice cream or red car, right? And it can't be generic. Again, people need to use generic names in business as well. So you couldn't for milk, name your company milk, right? So,
There is actually an advertising agency on the coast here in Connecticut. And I think their name is Milk.
right, because it's not descriptive of what they do, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not a term that somebody in that firm or that business other businesses need to use that term, right?
Hmm.
So the other thing, you cannot use somebody else's name, right, unless you get their permission to use their, right? So proper names, you can get trademark your proper name, but if it's you, right, or if you have the permission of that person,
So it's funny. I am Aileen Designs,
right?
but there is an Aileen's Design in Virginia. And it's
Right.
funny, neither of us have trademarked anything, but I do get a couple of calls a year for them to let
Right.
and I tell them it's a different put the S on the other word kind
Right.
of thing.
Right.
So how could you do that? Could Bob Smith's auto body shop
So
trademark that name?
yeah, it becomes difficult, especially when it's somebody's name, because a name it's just really not unique anymore, right? I mean, there's so many people on the planet. And so what you just described is what's called actual confusion in the marketplace of
Yeah.
the name. And that would right there trigger that you could not trademark
Okay.
your Aileen designs because it's confusingly similar to somebody else's, right? That's the standard.
Yeah. So one of the reasons, like when I was a kid, I always dreamt about owning my own business. And my parents were avid newspaper readers, and my dad would get the New York Times on Sunday. And remember when the stock market values and stuff, the trading was listed in the New York
Yep.
Times?
Yep.
There was a company in the 70s called Aileen. They were a clothing manufacturer. And I was like, there's my name. And I'd see my name every week in the New York Times. And I'm like, I'm going to have a business. And it was so funny because I was thinking about, do you trademark Aileen designs? can I trademark Aileen? Because Aileen was a publicly traded company in the 70s. I couldn't find a trace. I could not
Yeah.
find a trace of Aileen.
Yeah, they might have been bought and a bigger brand, just squash that. But you could trademarks are registered by classification, right? So your classification would be in the marketing sphere,
Okay.
right? My classification would be in the legal sphere, right? So I could, if a lien was available in the marketing sphere, you could do it. And if the Aileen Designs was in like the uh, photography sphere, you two may be able to coincide,
Huh.
right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, given sort of the Elon Musk example at the beginning of the
Yep.
podcast, where, you have a company that's established and growing and then comes to find that they legally don't own the name of their company. Do you have any examples of that, like in your experience that you've encountered?
Yeah, in addition to the guy, throwing his name out there on social media and getting it stolen, um, there was this real hotshot entrepreneur that was putting on branding seminars, not you. And she got a nasty cease and desist letter from a large clothing manufacturer,
Huh.
right? And you would think, okay, clothing manufacturer, why would they care what a branding seminar
Maybe it
person
was Aileen. Aileen
thought?
decided that was clothing. Aileen was clothing. So
Okay.
I had, sorry.
No, it wasn't, but I'll keep it generic. Yeah, so this clothing company, sent her a really nasty cease and desist letter. And I did a little bit of research, and they actually had an ongoing lawsuit against 38 other companies.
Wow.
Yeah, that they were suing for trademark infringement, right? So she had to drop the use of the name, swear that she would never use it again in writing, and she had to rebrand, right? And so, okay, so she rebranded. Well, her new rebrand never gained traction. It took her a while. She went back out there and she actually went out of
Hmm.
business. She doesn't put on those seminars anymore. So it was a big trip up for her.
So the company that went after her, if they had 30, cases out there, they must make more money than they pay the attorney to do that. And that's insane.
It is, right? Think about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Because that sounds like a pretty expensive thing. And I'm familiar with that story because we have talked about it before. And that company, the business was local.
Right,
It wasn't a national brand, but a
right,
national brand found the local
right.
person and
Yeah,
served them. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
So when you own a trademark, it's public record, okay? And so when Alien Designs goes to register their trademark, they put on the public record that Alien Designs is seeking a trademark, and other trademark owners can police um, uh,
Oh, okay.
that database to see if people are filing for confusingly similar things.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And Brand Cramp is going through that process right now,
that's right. That's right.
which is awesome.
Trademark pending. Right.
So like to shift, focus a little bit, from my perspective, one of the most important aspects of seeking a trademark is your ability to monetize sort of your asset.
Right.
Let's talk about the legal protection a trademark provides in terms of potential investors and business partners. And, you and I have talked about this a lot because as a marketing person and branding, I'm very interested in it. If you have a well-known brand, it's worth something.
Right.
So let's talk about that. I mean, you did some work with a daycare.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So let's just take a step back. How do you know if something's registered, right? Uh, so if you see a name with the R with a circle around it, that means it's registered, right? If you see something with a TM superscript next to it, that's common law trademark. So both of them you want to stay away from, right? But so if you have something that's registered, right? Like you brought up the daycare. So this daycare had a number of locations. They were fairly local, and they were bought out by a national chain, right? And they had several trademarks that were registered, right? And those sat on their books as an asset. And this was a asset sale to a national company, and more than 1/10 of the purchase price was assigned to the trademarks themselves.
That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah, I mean, they paid, they got at least a, 1,000-time return on registering their trademarks when they sold them as an asset.
That's awesome. And it's funny when I work with clients and I do branding for them, part of my intake is asking if their intention is to license or franchise their business. Because if they want to do that, then there is no way that I'm working with them unless they work with an IP attorney.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if
You
you're
know,
franchising your business and you don't have your name protected, what are you
yeah.
really, as a franchisee, what are you paying for?
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's why, the accounting firm that you and I worked on last year, I think that's why they went ahead and talked to you because, I think that they have a business model that's a little different.
Right.
And, they could actually at some point, although they're not thinking about it now, but at some point they could franchise, which,
Right.
and they're protecting themselves, which I think is fantastic. What other scenarios will leave a business vulnerable? I think about the couple of clients that I have who actually are selling on Amazon
Right.
and, you know, China's out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, the US is the biggest consumer market, right? And Amazon is the biggest sales force for small companies in the United States. And so Amazon has really tightened up their rules, right? Especially because of China,
Yeah,
um, where if you are selling something and claiming ownership of the name of the widget or the name of the company, you actually have to through Amazon verify that you're the owner of that trademark.
yep.
And so I get inquiries all the time from not all the time, but quite often from Amazon asking me to verify because I'm the attorney of record
Huh,
and my clients are looking to sell on Amazon.
that's awesome. And I know it's Brand Central
Right.
where you go and you upload stuff.
Right.
And I think that Amazon actually helps protect you.
So they offer the service.
Yeah,
It's quite expensive,
yeah, yeah,
but people feel jammed. So
yeah.
again, if one of the first things you do is pursue trademark protection, then you go in to Amazon, already ticked off that box, right?
Right, exactly, exactly. Speaking of this, in the event of a trademark infringement, what legal options are available to somebody?
Right. So if you're registered, you common law pursuit of a trademark infringement is very difficult, right? But if you're registered, one thing you can do is like we talked about before is you can police your mark, right? You can look for infringers, right? You don't have to, but if you do find one, uh, you need to reach out to them, and ask them to stop. One of the most famous trademarks is Jack Daniels, and they get knocked off all the time. And they have a really funny cease and desist letter that they send out. Um, and so it's the way of, you don't want to go beating them over the head and suing them right away, like we talked about before, but you want to get them to stop because you don't want them to cause them being the infringers. You don't want them to um, cause confusion in the marketplace where you may end up losing sales to the infringer, right? But the first thing you really need to do is, do your homework. Okay, so this, you're based in Connecticut, and you have somebody in Seattle that's, infringing your mark. Do some homework. Make sure you were the first one to use it, and then make sure that you beat them in time, is what I say. And then, are they actually causing confusion? If they are, gather that information, and reach out to them and ask them to stop. Um, if you are losing business and they continue to use your mark and you're registered, then you need to hire an attorney to get them to stop
Like
and pay
an
damages.
IP attorney?
An IP
Yeah,
attorney,
I
yeah.
mean, that makes sense, but I didn't know. That's interesting because,
Yeah,
you could, as the owner of the business, send the cease and desist. It doesn't have to come from an attorney.
right.
Huh.
You can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just make sure you do your homework, because if you're wrong, you could lose your mark, right? It's called trademark abuse, right?
Ah, interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
And like I
Um,
said, in different classifications, you could have the same name,
right.
right?
So in that scenario, I remember a story that was told to me about a person who ran groups, like they were marketing groups, and there was another person in another part of the United States that had the same name for a group, but the group was for a different purpose. And the owner or the organizer of one group reached out to the other group owner, and they agreed that they didn't compete and that they were okay to
Right.
use the names. Is that a good idea, or should you get an
So,
attorney involved?
so sure. I mean, if you are worried about somebody else coming after you, right? You could enter into a consent agreement between the two of you where you would, you know, agree not to advertise and offer services in their space, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so long as they, so long as they reciprocate, and they're, thereby avoiding, any ill will down the road. And you could also agree, not to not come close to doing anything that might cause some confusion.
And should that agreement be in writing?
Yeah,
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 okay,
yeah.
okay. Does it have to be, would that hold up in court though, in writing? Like if it's an email, and does it have to be notarized or anything like that?
So anything that's memorialized in writing is helpful,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So it goes from, the back of a napkin through an email to an actual sign, a signed document that the person prepares uh, personally, or,
Yeah,
all the way up to an attorney and notarized, right?
yeah.
So it's a
So
sliding scale.
you're reminding me of my mom and my grandmother. They were songwriters, and they belonged to ASCAP, which is the songwriter union.
Yeah.
And what they would do when they would write music is they'd put it in an envelope and they'd mail it to themselves, because the United States Post Office was official, kind of like the Santa Claus letters.
Right, right,
And
right.
when I first started doing my design, my mom's like, "All you have to do, honey, is just mail yourself your art and you're covered." Is that even
Yeah.
a thing anymore?
No, it doesn't really work. But I mean that's actually getting into copyright. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
that's
true, true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We'll save that for the next topic. So, as we come to the close of our this edition of our podcast, what are three considerations an entrepreneur or business owner should think about when it comes to launching a new product or service?
yeah, well, like I've been parroting on and on here, do your homework, right? Make sure whatever it is, whether it's a name, logo, or a slogan, um, that it's not being used, in the way that you want to use it, right? So, there's the
Just
acronym,
do it, right? Just
right?
do it,
Do your homework, right?
like
Um,
Nike.
right. And as soon as have done a little bit of your own homework, contact an IP attorney and get your trademark registered, right? Start that process. It's a long process now. You won't even hear anything for like 9 months, right? And you won't get your trademark registered for at least 13, 14 months. So get started as early as you can. And the other thing is be consistent in your branding, right? So if it's Aileen Designs as your name, use Aileen's Design as your name, right? Don't use Aileen Designs. Don't use Aileen, right? Don't use AD, right? Be consistent with your branding, right? Use the mark in the way that you're registering,
I'm taking notes.
right?
That's awesome.
Be
Okay.
consistent.
Be consistent. Yeah, consistency is important. So, okay, and there you have it. We are done. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Matt.
Yeah, fun, fun, fun,
Woo!
fun. Thanks,
All right.
Aileen.
Till next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.